Again, welcome to our presentation and thank you for your engagement. I'd like to start out with laying a bit of a foundation for our presentation and our research project. In the first couple weeks of class, we were asked to share research interests with our classmates, and so we did. And our group shared similar interests, and two of them were Generation Z, so looking at who is Generation Z, what makes them unique, and the other was leadership. And so through some discussion, some of the initial questions we were asking ourselves were, what is the preferred leadership style of Generation Z? And what can organizational leaders do to motivate or engage or retain Generation Z in the workplace? And with the help of Professor Wu, research on our part, working through our literature review, and even in discussion with other classmates, we landed on a research question, which is, how can organizational leaders effectively influence Generation Z to promote higher levels of retention in the workplace? And I'm going to share a little bit more about our research question in the following slide. But to talk a little bit about the purpose of our study, I'd like to highlight some specific sections of our literature review, and this is going to break down into four main sections, which is organizational success, Gen Z in the workplace, retention strategies, and then a gap in research that we were able to identify. So let's get into it. The success of an organization is largely dependent upon its ability to maximize the knowledge and skills of its workforce to meet organizational objectives. And so as we look at organizations, in order for them to be successful, in order for them to work towards their mission, in order for them to meet their organizational goals, in order for them to stay in alignment with their strategic plan, it's dependent upon their workforce, the people working in their organization. And so it's critical for organizational leaders to know their employees, to lead them well, to know what motivates them, to build a culture in which their employees are thriving and want to stay around. And so organizational success is very important to our study as we look at strategies leaders can implement to retain Gen Z. The coming of a new decade marks the entry of a new generation into universities and organizations. And so following the well-studied millennials is Generation Z, and they're born between 1995 and 2010, according to a study conducted in 2018 by Francis and Hofel. And according to those authors, Generation Z is unlike any other, and I'd like to share a little bit about that. So they've grown up, according to Maioli in 2017, in a completely digital world, always having access to the internet and people all over the world. And according to C. Miller and Grace, 2017, the advent of the internet occurred alongside that of Gen Z in 1995. And so this has caused Gen Z to be highly global via the rise of social media, according to Maioli, 2017, within reach of endless information, C. Miller and Grace, 2017, and skilled with the ability to multitask, Irgoluscu, 2016. In addition to the advanced technological behaviors of Gen Z, research shows that they are highly individualistic, have short attention spans, and dislike routine tasks. That was Maioli 2017. And so Irgoluscu 2016 says this generation is marked by a mix of interconnectedness through technology and a strong value for effectiveness and productivity. And each of these elements point to an increased need to better understand this group of individuals. So we have organizations, and we know in part what leads to success of organization, which are the employees. And we have a mass of this new generation coming into the workforce. And so, how to lead them well, how to retain them, these are some questions that we're getting into with our research project. So selection, hiring, training, and retention of talented people is an ongoing challenge for organizations. This especially becomes a challenge within the multi-generational workplace that is introducing Generation Z into a dynamic global marketplace. Employers understand that recognizing the unique values that matter to the incoming Generation Z workforce will allow them to align business needs with employee needs, which welcomes the new cohort into the workplace and gives organizations the competitive advantage. And that was Fratrikova and Kirchmeier, 2018. So the study of Gen Z in the workplace is emerging, and information about retaining this population is currently not as accessible as it is for their millennial predecessors. And so this was the big gap in research that we identified. We found a lot of information about organizational success. We found quite a bit of information around Gen Z, but more specific to their characteristics, behaviors, and preferences. And then we also found some information around retention strategies. But in our review of the literature and existing research, we were unable to find one peer-reviewed article specifically around retention strategies for Gen Z in the workplace. And so this is the purpose of our study, to conduct a study in which we can identify retention strategies for Gen Z in the workplace. We hope you enjoy the rest of our presentation.